of your responses. And in those 4 areas, the SEMP areas, spiritual, emotional, mental, and physical. And so this is your assessment now. This is your assessment of the church. And if you remember, there were nine responders to the assessment when we did this last week. And we had a chart. And we had a chart, remember, and there's replicating, meaning reproducing the results of reaching out to the community needs and building capacity. And then there's resilience, aware and ready and there to give a biblical response. Engaged is responding to crisis but lacking structure and skills. And responsive, you are learning how to endure, means that's to endure for yourself, and meeting needs. Challenged, you're looking to do more, but what? You haven't quite determined, what to do, so you're feeling challenged. Reluctant, you do what you have to, but it is not a priority to respond to a community need. Or detached, haven't thought about readiness at all. And so that was the chart, the scoring thing. And so there you see the Ready CDA NAS results. In the spiritual area, the composite average was 10.67. Emotional 1644, mental 1289, and physical 88.56, with an average total of 48.56, which puts it in the category of responsive. In other words, you're learning how to endure and meeting needs. Responsive is a positive word. So it's good that there is a responsive attitude here. And that's something that you can obviously build upon. So just take a look at that. With that average total, the church is learning how to endure and meeting needs, but lacking structure and skills. Would you confirm that that's the case, right? So this actually really ferreted out something you have all been telling me. Isn't it just really amazing? This works.
And that's why you're here.
That's, and we just got through saying how amazing it is. And when I was looking at this and seeing where the needs were and how it fits with exactly what it is we're doing, God knew that we were supposed to be here for such a time as this. It's so very obvious. It's such confirmation, isn't it? And I'm so thrilled to see that. And then look at also what it says. The church is lacking awareness, preparedness, and a focused response and process and plan. Well, that's why we're doing Ready Church, right? But you recognize the need is there. You see, that's what's so really, really cool. You had agreement on that. And the church is currently unable to respond in a sound biblical manner internally to its own threats and risks. And one of the reasons why that there would be difficulty in responding internally is because of what we mentioned with the map, that so many people are commuter people. So it makes it harder and more challenging to respond to the internal needs of the congregation itself, much less the outside. You kind of see what some of those things are? Okay.
What are its own threats and risks?
Okay.
What does that mean?
Okay, and so, Paul, what are its own threats and risks?
Sorry to put you on the spot there,
No,
but
he's okay. I put him on the spot. You didn't do it. I did it.
I'm going to read it again. What
What are the church's own threats and risks? Just give an example of our own church's threat and risks.
a threat? A threat could be somebody coming into this church. In fact, it's happened where they just walked in the back door and going, who's this person? They're already in a secure area, and that's not good. There's all sorts of threats to Christians just because you're a Christian church. So you're on the market for that. And then the second part was, you said
Risks, just a risk. Just a risk.
A risk could be, this could be a location of disruption because it's a church. Risk that we're not able to even meet the needs of our own people here should something happen.
Also, the church has been broken into numerous times, and
So there's already been vandalism and breaking and entering.
well,
Okay.
I read that
So-
read that as threats and risks coming from within the church
Well,
rather than in the church facility.
it is, but
I mean, the church body.
the internal threats and risks are just what Paul has said. That is a threat to the church. Also having data stolen, right? Data stolen. I mean, that's just another example of a risk. So what we do is we have a ministry continuity plan to make sure that ministry goes on despite crisis. But the church doesn't have a ministry continuity plan. And so that's why then these risks and threats become more of a risk and threat, because we're not organized to be able to respond to them.
We just wing it all.
We wing it, and wing it does not work.
Yeah.
It does not work. Okay, the church is currently unable to respond biblically and consistently to the community. So, for example, in this document, it said that people were really proud of the outreach of Upward Sports, I think it is. But it also said, interestingly enough, an observation that actually Mike had made to me early on, and I had not made this observation, but it confirmed what he said, is the outreach is there to the community, but the church has not been able to engage the people that are involved in the Upward Sports to bring them to the church, where they're actually church attenders. They haven't been able to convert those people that they're reaching out to.
In defense of that, Upward is a Christian sport, so a lot of them already have their own churches, and on the forms they fill out what church they're affiliated with. So Susie knows the ratio of how many are unchurched.
So you see, in a sense, though, the majority of that outreach is to already churched people. And so when we're going to biblical readiness and responding to the community need of the non-believer, which is the big crisis, then that doesn't totally fit, then, does it? Because the majority of them are already churched, and we're not in the business of sheep stealing, right? We're in the business of new birth. And so that's why I wanted to kind of make that distinction there. And so when you think of the reaching out to the community, is there any one area that you can think of that you felt has gone really, really well in reaching out to the community? Any particular thing you've done?
Well, Quest is reaching out to the community in a great way.
And non-believers?
Yes.
And are you converting those people?
Some.
Some. What would you say the ratio would be of those that are being converted to actually be attenders? You know what I mean by conversion, converging. Yes.
Barbara would know that.
It's
I know.
That would be a good
It'd be
question.
low,
I'll just say
2%.
we struggle across the board with doing exactly with what you said. To me, I might have a different philosophy than maybe others, but I looked at this church as this church just does things, and the fact that we do something was a good thing. I would sit there and go, but we're missing the point.
Yeah.
We're not. So we struggle with that because we aren't there.
Yeah. And so it kind of reminds me of, we've always done BBS, but we can't really remember when the last time was the child came to Christ. There's just that age-old kind of thing like that. And so why are we doing it? Are we doing it because can we really measure that it is achieving what it is that our heart wants it to
I
achieve?
mean, when we had that event here, there was, I think, 5 families that came right after that. None of them stayed.
See, and so
They came and left.
Okay, so they went in and out,
They were in
and
and
so that is really serious, because we've got to find out why it is, right?
Yeah.
So, but here's what I can tell you. I have a success story. Okay, so when Steve and I first, came here, very first time. We came here early on when your former pastor was here. And then we knew that there was going to be a transition. And so we waited until that kind of took place. And I think you see the wisdom of that now, right? Especially just because of, my involvement in the Church of the Nazarene. It was better for me to not be involved in your calling of a pastor. I can tell you. And one of the reasons why this is just like, oh wow, the timing is really great, is because we really minded the Lord in that matter. We waited upon Him for the timing. That was not easy to do, and for the life of me, I don't know why it took you 2 years. But it did. We had to wait 2 years. Meanwhile, we learned an awful lot about the churches in the area, you can imagine. Came out grieving every single time, But here we found ourselves, right? The first time, then walking in, right? Tom. Okay, Tom. The other gal, Kathy. right? Second time, same ones. Oh, we remember you're back again, you know? It was like all over again. Sit in the sanctuary. People were talking to us. They asked us our name, and they came up to us. I mean, they were even sitting on other places in the sanctuary. They actually came over and spoke to us. Well, for me as the evangelist, what do you think that does? Yeah. That's exactly. So we were really thrilled about that, right? So, just know that there's a number of things of the main touches that the church is doing well. But there's some things that this outlines in terms of the infrastructure and the process and planning and really being able to execute what it is that you're hoping to do needs to tighten up, right? So I want you to take that, even though that it's pretty brutal. I just really want you to see the positives. You are responding. But look, for example, when I said, well, so do you have a compassionate, care ministry? Most Nazarene churches kind of do. They do. Most of them have something like that, right? And we don't really know. And so Kathy, she responds and she lets people know that something's going on, but it all funnels through Kathy. Well, where's Kathy's care team? See, I mean, Mrs. Everything can only do not everything. And so that's not necessarily a really effective, is it? Effective kind of way that it's set up. And it's not spreading the leadership, it's not spreading for people to get involved. And one of the things that Carol said so profoundly, right from the very beginning is, well, what are you interested in? Well, how can we get you involved, right? I mean, what did they do? They had us over at their house, remember? We were there, and that's all they talked about is the involvement. And so they were doing that. But how many other people besides John and Carol? How many other people are intentionally assimilating the people that they're meeting that come through the doors? And so those are things that we can, I think, do a better job. Okay.
I do have volunteers for that, but it's too getting organized.
It's getting organized.
The Tellens, they are another family that invites people.
Right, and someone, said to me, we've never really been empowered to do this kind of thing before, right? You're all nodding your heads, like, ooh, that's really true. Okay, well, this is all about empowering you as a leader to be able to respond as a leader, and that's just a tremendous way that God's glory just gets manifested by that. And so this is like set you free time, and all the other people that are in your area.
And especially, I imagine new people would feel, and that's like you guys being new too, would feel like, well, we weren't empowered to do that.
Yeah. You see, and so, I can tell you that with Mike and Karen, after meeting them, you see, I could see exactly what the Lord was doing through that Sunday.
Yeah.
It was so providential, wasn't it? It really was. And here they sit, and they needed to be empowered in leadership here. They haven't been coming all that long, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you see how that kind of works? Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to just to focus just for a minute on the church emergency team responsibility. So you're going to be reading chapter 2, and that's what you're going to be doing this week. And so I'm going to kind of scoot through some of the main topics that you're going to be covering in chapter 2. But you're still going to have to read it, because even though I go through it topically, just quickly, it doesn't take the place of your reading. Did you read the biblical readiness chapter? Yes, okay. So it's the same thing. You'll be reading chapter 2.
Okay, so on the information that I have, I was confused as to what we were doing tonight. I had to ask her, like chapter 2 isn't on my, it doesn't say chapter 2.
Back at the,
That I know. Huh?
is that back at the website?
It's, back at the website. And in fact, what it would be really kind of good is if you could just, when you draw them down, just go ahead and send them out, and that way everybody will, be on the same page. And you don't have to print them off. You just go ahead and read them, read them all the way
I
through.
have them all downloaded,
Oh, good.
but none of them say chapter 2.
No, well, it's the, it would be the,
gives like,
it's the whole thing on, getting the leadership going within the church. That's the
Okay.
leadership section.
the leadership.
Getting started.
Getting getting started leadership.
Okay,
We did biblical readiness, and now we're getting started in leadership as the title of that.
okay, I know, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's just the
Getting
second
started
one in
leadership,
the
Chapter 2.
thing. Okay. So now what we want to understand is that Christian Emergency Network, what we've established is a very key principle is that when a church will respond to all kinds of emergencies, they respond better when they have church emergency teams in place. When you have the infrastructure in place, you will respond better to any crisis that comes your way. Remember, crisis are the opportunity. So since 90% of people ask, where is God in this? Why would we not want to seize the opportunity of people in crisis for such good fruit, right? Such good opportunity. So that the church emergency team understand that they are only themselves. You are only effective when you equip yourself first. You have to be equipped first. And then you equip the church, and then others in that order. So you first, then the church, and then others. And that's why we developed the Ready Christian training that hopefully, Karen's going to be able to review that with you in another few more weeks, and you'll kind of go through that with her, and then that'll be something that you'll be going through with the whole congregation. So I would really, advise you to start looking at that now, start doing it as a family, doing Ready Christian, so that you become the experts in Ready Christian, so that when we do this as